I am a moronic comic book artist, barely literate, spent most of my life watching Star Wars and drawing cartoon cats. And I know more about the Supreme Court. I'm more accurate on my predictions than Sonny or any of the people on The View. Makes me so sad. Not because I feel smart, but because they're so dumb. Welcome to Doug in Exile. Let's get dumb together and watch The View.
The Supreme Court has just ruled unanimously that Colorado courts cannot keep you-know-who off the state's ballot for engaging in insurrection, finding that a state cannot make a call that could have a national impact on a federal election.
This looks like Whoopi is going to a dentist. She's having to mouth these words. I love it. Where's the dance at for when Trump had to extracted all that money from Democrat judges that didn't involve actual justice, and these ladies are dancing all around. Now it's time for, this is actual justice. They look like they're at a funeral.
Of course, unless it's about a woman's right to choose, but let's not get into that.
We're not going to talk about a woman's right to choose, because you really mean you want to choose for a unborn woman inside the womb on whether she should exist or not. So yeah, you're right. We won't talk about that.
What do you all think of this? I mean, is anybody surprised by this decision?
No. And I actually think it was the right decision to make, because it would have, you know, if Colorado had been allowed to do that, we'd have this chaotic sort of process where you have 50 states and some are choosing to put him on the ballot and some are choosing not to put him on the ballot. So that's why this decision was unanimous in judgment. But
it's unanimous in judgment, and it was stupid and political for it to come up. But The View didn't weigh in and say that before today. They say it now after it got overturned, but deep down inside, they were hoping.
But if you read the dissent by Justices Sotomayor and Kagan and also Jackson.
I'm sorry, you're missing a name. Who could it be on the dissent? Oh, Amy Coney Barrett. You missed the conservative that is also, she's dissenting even though they voted in support of the Supreme Court. All these women did, the four ladies did. But Sonny doesn't bring up Barrett because she has to keep trying to say it is somehow political. And it's not, no matter how you look at it. Sonny's political. The Supreme Court was not in this case.
They are saying the Supreme Court went too far here because they answered a question that wasn't before them. The only question that was before this court was, can a state do this? Instead, what they did was they insulated all alleged insurrectionists from future challenges to their holding federal office.
Because we know this, more of this was going to come from Democrats, so they weighed in on it. Future insurrectionists, no. And by the way, it was only 4 women dissented from the opinion that said future insurrectionists don't even bother trying to roll this one out. This is a Civil War era rule. It is not about what Trump is doing today or any of your opponents today.
And it is a tenet of Supreme Court law. I am a Supreme Court a bar admitted attorney.
I make comic books.
It says what it does today, the court should have left undone. And we always learn that in law school. The Supreme Court should just answer the question before it. And I had far too much hope that the court would be united in this and not overstep in favor of Donald Trump. And I think what we saw was a court where justices that behaved in a partisan manner.
It still wasn't partisan. She's on a united 9-0 vote. She's saying it's partisan. Sonny, no matter how you slice it, you can't do it. Keep trying. But the Supreme Court, live in front of everyone, proved you wrong.
Started to gain faith, as Sonny would tell us, like, this is going to get him. And I was like, But seeing it, I now get the chaos which would ensue. And I think it's important when you don't like the outcome, which I'm not saying I don't.
Yeah, the problem is she's saying it right there. She goes, I had faith in Sonny that she was almost right. And then history and reality proved her wrong.
Ron DeSantis actually at one point said, I'm actually looking at this in Florida now. Could we make a credible case that Biden should be removed because of whatever? reason he can come. And that could be happening, as you said, in every other state.
That's all that Ron DeSantis was saying is, let's see how the Supreme Court says. Can you remove people from the ballot? Because let's get Biden off the ballot. That's exactly why the Supreme Court had to rule the way they did, why it was unanimous, why it was always going to go with it this way. And only anti-legal theory, anti-constitutionalist, amateur, hardened leftist, delusional people thought different.
The only place to beat Donald Trump is at the ballot box.
It's time to stop prosecuting Trump with all this lawfare. It didn't work, guys. Now let's get to the ballot box.
And the way to do that, yes, you have to litigate his unfitness, his anti-constitutional stances, but we also have to pay attention to the issues that the voters who are still with him care about. I think that I'm curious to hear what Joe Biden says in the State of the Union coming up later this week, but voters for the first time, the majority are saying border security matters to us. They're saying the economy matters, and we've seen...
That's the bottom line of this whole thing. The Democrats are coming around, and this fake Republican is coming around. Finally, they're going... It's about the economy and the southern border. Here's a few news articles to back that up. Here's CBS News. I posted this on the community chat for the channel yesterday. If you subscribe to our channel, then you'll see those community posts. CBS News poll finds voters remember Trump's economy as good, boosting Trump to national lead over Biden today. Nationally, he just went ahead of Biden. Trump did. Why? It's the economy that people remember. So all the gaslighting of all these people saying Biden's economy is good, Biden's economy is good, the people don't remember it that way, you brainwashers. As Super Tuesday makes an historic rematch all but official, voters are comparing not just two presidents, but two presidencies. And right now, former President Donald Trump emerges from that comparison as the front runner. He leads President Biden by 4 points nationally, his largest lead to date. Here's why. Voters recall the economy under Trump more fondly than they rate the economy now. That means reality won out over the lies of The View. While neither gets great marks, voters today look back on Trump's presidency with relatively better retrospective ratings than they'd rate Joe Biden's presidency so far. And remember, the Democrats thought all of this would be negated if they could just get some of these lawsuits to stick against Trump. But none of them are sticking. They're not working. So now they have to go back to the old issues of how's the economy? How were you under Trump? How's the border?
We have to realize that voters aren't necessarily following this 24-hour news cycle of the Trump drama. They're voting with their pocketbooks, and to beat him, it's going to come down to with a different alternative.
But I think they're also voting based upon a lot of the misinformation that they're getting from Fox News.
Oh, it's so lazy. As if Fox News, what about, the ratings of The View? What about your audience? Why is Fox News beating so much better at brainwashing people than you guys who are bury the needle against Trump?
Right, and from other outlets.
We're another outlet.
So I think that has a lot to do with why they're sticking with him in this cultish manner, and let's call it what it is. It feels like a cultish manner.
Why are you sticking with Biden in a cultish manner? See, what's good for Biden followers? Fine, we're in a cult. But then you're in a cult too for sticking to Biden because all five of you are going to vote for Biden. You are not going to vote for Trump. So you are sticking to him in a cultish manner, regardless of how the economy is doing and how the law, even the Supreme Court agrees with Trump. Your little cult makes you vote for Biden.
But to your point, yes, they didn't find that he was an insurrectionist. They didn't reach that issue. But what they did do when you read the entire opinion is even if he were an insurrectionist, they have somehow insulated him.
They didn't find he was an insurrectionist, but even if he was an insurrectionist, you could not use this law against him. That's what they decided, and that is extremely correct.
So if he is found to be an insurrectionist, the way I read this, he can still be the president of the United States. And I thought that the 14th Amendment and our framers knew better.
Here's where you're wrong again. I'm so sorry to embarrass you on this, Sonny. The framers it didn't come up to the framers because the insurrectionist clause, that whole thing didn't come about until the Civil War. It was the Civil War that said people in the South were insurrectionists and so were disqualified from being the president. so that the framers never would have weighed in on it because it was about 75 years later. So now you know this was never going to be something that the founders envisioned. It's something that the Civil War level Supreme Court weighed in on, and now it does not in any way apply to Trump. Thanks for playing. I'm Doug in Exile.